Hello and welcome to Grouchy Old Geeks episode 19. My name's Steve, my co-host is Scott.
Hello.
For this episode we've got a bit of news and reviews, and then for our main feature we're going to talk about the Blade Runner films. We're going to talk about the old one and compare it and contrast it with the new Blade Runner 2049. So I think we're going to end up spoiling the new film for sure, because we can't really talk about both of them without doing that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think we're just going to have to go right ahead and assume you've seen both of them, or you don't care.
Yeah, you're happy with spoilers, but we can't really talk too much in depth about the new one and certain aspects of it without spoiling it. So we'll come on to that, but we'll do a bit of news first. So, in the era of remakes and reboots, the latest that I've heard about is from Donald Bellisario, whose name you might remember.
Well, I mean, he practically produced my entire childhood. And I think I've read this news as well.
Okay, so he has written a screenplay for a potential reboot of Quantum Leap.
I know, how strange, isn't it?
Yeah, he says he's done it, and then he's sort of, well, I don't really know what's going to happen with it, but he's produced it. So we don't know if it'll go anywhere. We don't know if people will pick it up. We don't know if they'll make it a film or a TV show. We just don't know. But he's done it, so obviously it's in his mind, and it was a very successful TV show. But I don't see how it would work as a film.
No, and that was the thing that kind of stood out from the news article that I read. So to quote him directly, he said, "I've just finished writing a Quantum Leap feature," and feature to me means movie.
Yeah,
or at least that's how I would normally interpret it. And it's just, given the whole point is that he's jumping into different people's bodies and it's a different sort of story every week. It seems almost impossible to reconcile with it being a movie unless the movie is kind of not what made Quantum Leap in the first place.
Which would be really weird. Be like, so that he leaps in and then they just stop? Is that it? Because it's a reboot, so it can't be his first leap because then it's also his last leap. It's very, very, very strange. Very strange.
I know, it's something that sounds like it would be really cool, and they wouldn't necessarily have to do it as a reboot. They could follow on from it. So if spoiler alert slightly, but you're 30 years out of date if you haven't watched Quantum Leap. But Quantum Leap very famously ends with the title card, Dr. Sam Beckett never returned home. Yeah. So we know that he's out there leaping from place to place, and you could easily see something really cool, like, his son. His son had to grow up without a father because Sam was jumping from place to place, but he ends up becoming a scientist, and then meets up with Al. The actor who brilliantly was in Battlestar Galactica as well. So we know that he's still working. Yep. He could team up with Al and start leaping himself to try and track down his father, Sam Beckett. Which sounds awesome to me, and I've just completely made all that up. But it would be really cool to kind of do it as like a follow-on TV series. But who knows what it is? The news is scant, but is still kind of intriguing and interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Just this endless cycle of remakes worries me. I just wish they'd do something brand new, because so many great ideas are out there, and some of them are incredibly successful. So why not do new ideas?
Yeah, I agree. Is it just, though, that we've reached the age where we're seeing stuff being kind of recycled now? We're watching stuff in the 80s that was like being recycled from the 50s, but we were just less aware of it.
I don't know. I think there's just more of it. They're constantly looking for content, and go for an easier reach of something that's already been there before, thinking it's got an built-in audience and get the old fans as well as new people, just with name recognition. But then if you take it so far from the original, you're just going to annoy both groups. So why bother doing it in the first place?
I know that's the bizarre thing, right? Either you're going to be old enough to have fondly remembered Quantum Leap, and then be really disappointed when they go off and do something completely different, or you're never going to have any recollection at all of what the original Quantum Leap was, and so it means nothing to you in the first. It's a very strange. Who are they trying to appeal to by rebooting these sort of slightly more obscure things?
Yeah. Very weird. Anyway, do you have any news?
Well, it was more of a question than a bit of news. But this is kind of a combination of recycling things from our childhood, whilst at the same time doing something completely original. Which is that this weekend, the new season of Stranger Things dropped, and I was just wondering whether you'd seen it, how much you'd seen, what you thought of it, or you're just waiting to smash through it all in a single day.
So I was away all weekend from first thing Saturday until late last night. So I've been dodging spoilers for people who've binge watched it over the weekend, like a guy dancing through a minefield and managing to come out on the other side scot-free. So far I've not seen a single frame of the new stuff. I've not had anything spoiled. I've completely dodged everything. And me and my partner are going to sit down and start watching it at a sedate pace. If it was me, I'd burn through it in the next 8 hours until tomorrow. But I'm not allowed to do that. So I'm going to watch it a bit more slowly. What about you? Have you watched some or all?
I've only, like you, I was away for the weekend, so I've seen a single episode of it, which I watched last night, and it's
first impressions.
So far, great. So it's quite a slow start in the sense, they're not like dropping you into the, the drama and the action and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
we're kind of seeing, where the characters now are, a short time after we left them at the end of the first season. Good. But it's a really strong start, I'm going to say. It just like season one, it draws on all of these fun things that make me feel like I'm 12 again, and they've sort of really managed to recapture that atmosphere. Really not clear to me, exactly where it's going, because, like I say, it is just kind of getting us reacquainted with the characters at least in episode one. But still great to see it back on the TV. Great to see them, dredging up more fun things from my childhood, like amusement arcades and, a Dragon's Lair and all that sort of stuff again. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching more of them.
Okay, so a similar question from me. Have you watched any of the TV show called The Good Place?
I'm way ahead of you. I'm going to sound like a hipster now, but I was watching it before it was cool.
Okay. So I've just finished watching season 1.
Right.
Which you've obviously done.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm going to say this to anybody. If you've not watched any of The Good Place and you think it looks okay, and it's that kind of show that you think you'd like, watch it. And if you think it's just okay and it's not brilliant, get to the very end of the first season. It's not long. Every episode is only 22 minutes, and there's only 13 episodes in season 1, so it's not a huge commitment. If you get to the end of that first season and you still don't like it, brilliant, walk away and never. But if you give up halfway through that first season, you are missing out. You really, really are. There's so many things in there, so many clever ideas that just really surprised me, and I'm so glad I've now seen the end of that first season, because I'm burning through season 2 now.
Yeah, so now you're up to date. So now it's sort of getting drip fed to you, isn't it? Because you can only watch one episode a week. I guess
I think we've got a few already on season 2. I mean.
Oh no, yeah, but if you're up to date, then season 2 is still an ongoing show.
Oh right, okay. Oh.
So if you haven't seen The Good Place, It stars Kristen Bell, who obviously Steve will know most familiarly from the movie Frozen.
What?
I was just assuming that you were a massive fan of Frozen.
No.
Okay. I just assumed that you were massively into the movie Frozen. Anyway.
How long have we been doing this show? 10 years.
So it was a really bad joke. This backfired on me terribly. Never mind. So
both times.
Season 1, episode 1, she wakes up and she's just sort of sitting in the room on a sofa, and on the wall opposite is just this massive green sign that says everything is fine. And then Ted Danson comes out of an office and says, "We'll come in. We'll have a chat." He says, "Don't worry, you're dead." But it turns out, the majority of people go to some, hellish dimension. He says, "But you're okay. You're in the good place," which is where the title of the show comes from.
Yeah.
But the twist is, it's a case of mistaken identity, because actually in life she was a really nasty person.
Yes.
And she's accidentally in heaven, but she's really, really keen to stay there for as long as possible. So she ends up teaming up with these people. Initially, so only one of those knows her secret, and she's desperately trying to appear good, whilst actually really not being that good of a person. And I have to say, I think it's probably the funniest comedy I've seen in years and years.
It is, because there's all these things that she's constantly dodging all these other people who are amazing, who've done fantastic things, and she's supposed to be this other person. It's a mistake of, as you said, a mistaken identity. Someone with her name, identical name, is supposed to be there instead of her, and she's supposed to be this great humanitarian who saved all these people, and she really doesn't like people at all, and it flashes back to her life on Earth and shows you how unpleasant she was to pretty much everybody. So she's a fraud and constantly having to just kind of and she's trying to improve herself so she can earn her place there, but it's a long reach for her. It's a real stretch, and she can't swear. You can't swear in a good place, so she's constantly saying things like, "Oh, fork me," and "What's this shirt all about?" and "Oh, I can't say fork, ah!" And she's just constantly frustrated. She can say ass, I think. That's about it.
That's right. So I liked it right from episode 1, and I thought it was really funny. But I sort of midway through season 1, and like you say, it's not very long, but midway through season 1, that kind of feels like when they really hit their stride, and sort of the jokes get sort of closer together and funnier and darker. And some really great fantasy ideas in there as well. It's a really fun kind of a universe that they're playing in. So yeah, I couldn't recommend it highly enough. I think it's a great show.
Cool. Have you got any more news?
I'm a little bit light, I've got to confess.
So I've got 2 other bits. So this one I'm not really sure about. So in July at Comic-Con, they announced that the MGM is resurrecting the Stargate franchise. But they're doing a web series prequel, which is in production at the moment. And there's various bits of footage you can watch online of showing them working on this sort of web series. Now, I don't really know what's going to happen afterwards, but we're going to get this 10-episode web series, and then I don't know if it means we're going to get a TV series after that, or where it's going to be, or how many episodes, or what capacity. But that's what they're sort of talking about at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess they must be hoping that it's not just going to stay as a web series. So maybe they're hoping to sell it to Netflix, or it's going to go on broadcast TV or something like that. But it's a really cool idea, almost like kind of doing their own pilot and putting it out there and letting people decide what its fate's going to be.
Yeah, and it is a 10-episode series. So I guess if it builds momentum. I mean, the original series went for, 8 years, 9 years, SG-1?
Yeah.
Then you had 2 spin-offs.
So you had Stargate Universe, and I'm missing
Atlantis.
One. That's right, yeah.
I mean, Atlantis went for a while. I know Universe only got 2 seasons, but Atlantis went for about 4 or 5. So, that's nearly like 15, 16 seasons of stuff. So there's a lot of material there, a lot of stuff they can mine. But it looks like they're going like right back to the beginning. So do you remember in the original film with Kurt Russell, you have the old woman Catherine who's found the original Stargate in Egypt or something?
Yep.
So in this web series, we've got a young Catherine, a young woman, going on the original adventure, as it were, to find this mystery and what is a Stargate and something. So it's sort of going back before anything we've seen before in any capacity, and then they're going to have to move forward. But in what way they do that beyond this web series, I don't know. But I'm curious to see where they go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think there's room for a new Stargate TV show, because I really enjoyed it. I thought I enjoyed the movie at the time. I don't think it's aged particularly well, but the series it managed to hit a really great note between being sort of semi-okay sci-fi, but having a great cast of characters. It was sort of the Star Trek formula that we complained about, Discovery not having last episode, which is where, it's an ensemble cast. They're all really likable. They're all kind of sort of like family, or they end up becoming family. And it's just a really entertaining bit of episodic TV. So it would be great to see it successful. Another prequel though, Steve.
Yeah.
Like let's just, and the thing is, they built up the universe really well over those 15 seasons. It started out as this really episodic thing, and then they started to bring in, plots that would last for more episodes and would span seasons and things like that. And then, they've built up this, whole canon worth of stuff only to set something before all of that happened.
Yeah.
I don't really get it. I just wish they would, show us 20 years in the future, not 50 years in the past.
Yeah. So, last bit of news I've got is featuring a close friend of yours and mine in the show. Not really. Zachary Levi from...
Oh, yeah. Zach, as we call him.
Zach, as we call him. Zach to his chums, like us. Who's been most recently in things like Chuck, or very recently, he was one of the Warriors 3 in the Thor films. For Marvel. So this is a weird one, and you may not think it is, depending on how much you know about the character. But anyway, he has been cast in the title role of the upcoming DC Comics film Shazam at New Line.
I know, as Captain Marvel, I believe.
Correct. Yes. So the story follows a boy called Billy Batson who gets this magic power. By saying the word Shazam, he's transformed into the hero Captain Marvel, who has the strength of, Hercules, the intelligence of the speed of Achilles, the strength of Mercury, all this sort of, the powers that make up the word Shazam, all this sort of stuff. But Captain Marvel, the thing that he transformed into, this sort of... He's not even really a real person, as it were, because he's a combination of all these things, is a massive... Superman-sized, muscly guy who flies around and is pretty much invulnerable. And Zach's going to be playing that part of the character.
I know. So it was funny. So I actually did see this piece of news. And when he announced it, it was a very funny tweet, because he said something along the lines of, I'm really thrilled and humbled to be playing Captain Marvel. Now, excuse me, I'm going to be in the gym for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So he knows he's got some working out to do.
Well, yeah. Because The Rock has already announced, and DC announced it, that he's going to be playing Black Adam, who's the main villain of Captain Marvel. And you can see that. You put the pointy ears on him, you cut his hair a little bit, shave off his beard. Yeah, he's Black Adam. Absolutely fits. Now, God bless Zach. He's going to have to put on about... realistically 8 stone and then turn that into muscle, because the dude's as tall as me, but he's like a string bean. So unless they put a fat suit on him or a muscle suit like they did with Vinnie Jones in the X-Men film you don't talk about, and he became the bloody Juggernaut, whatever they called him.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to work. CGI mocap muscle suit, or I don't know.
Who knows? And it also seems a very strange DC property as well to do, because so I don't know much about Captain Marvel, but everything that you've said to me makes it sound quite campy, in the sense that, the whole Shazam thing, and he's called Captain Marvel, and he's got all of these abilities based on Greek gods and things like that.
Yep.
And I can't imagine him going up against old sour face himself, Batman, or even more sour face Superman. It sounds like it sounds like the tone of it would have to be very different from what we're used to seeing with DC.
Yes, the new band of films has been very, dour and depressing and somber, because they looked at Chris Nolan's and went, yes, that's work. Let's do that for every character ever. That's blatantly what we should do. And now they're moving away from that and integration of all their films, because it hasn't worked as well as they hoped. But I don't know. It's an interesting idea. I'm curious to see what they do with the project, but I don't really know what's going to happen.
Exactly. And if it was, I think if it was about to appear in a Marvel property, that sounds really strange. I think I'd be like, it does sound really weird, but Marvel doesn't really put a foot wrong with these things, so I've got faith in them that they're going to be able to pull it off. DC, not so much.
Not in terms of their films, no.
Yeah.
No. Marvel, after all the things they've done, you're like, yeah, I'll give it a go. I'm sure that... I mean, I can't wait to see Thor Ragnarok. It's supposed to be bonkers and weird and fantastic, but they had a talking tree and a talking raccoon, so yeah, they got that. Thor versus Hulk. Yeah. That's fine. I can understand that. Anyway, right. Should we crack on to the main?
Great. Hello, welcome back. So now we're going to be talking about Blade Runner, both the original and the recent released Blade Runner 2049. We'll talk a little bit about what we think about the original and what it's evolved into, because we both went to see the movie recently. And like we said at the beginning of the episode, just to be absolutely clear, we're going to pull no punches in terms of spoilers. Yeah. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, now is the time to go and pause us, watch the movie, and then come straight back and listen to what we thought of it. So to start with, Steve, tell me a little bit about your relationship to the original Blade Runner, like when you remember seeing it, what you thought of it, just all of that sort of stuff.
So I'm originally from the Northeast, and so is the director, Ridley Scott. He's from Newcastle, or roundabouts there, and that's, where I grew up. And he based some of the visuals on an area just the south of that called Middlesbrough. And there's a section where you drive on the motorway and the road lifts up over, it's like a raised motorway. And you go through a very, very industrial area with these towers and lights on and bits and pieces, and there's a lot of smog. And something in that sparked his imagination, which he then carried into the original Blade Runner. Not all of it, but, some of the visuals of the cityscape. So I had a weird connection to the film from that. Years later, every time I drove through that, it just kept tapping on my brain, going, oh, yeah, I can see where he got the ideas from now. But I watched it when I was in it would have been teens, I think. Mm-hmm. The first time I watched it, I probably just thought, yeah, it's all right. Yeah, it's quite interesting. And the film, remember, didn't do very well at the cinema. It didn't set the box office alight. It was only years later, and with so many fans coming to it later, that it gained cult classic status and the power. But as I've grown older and watched it more and more times, I've come to regard it as, one of the best science fiction films that I've ever seen. I know it is your favourite film ever.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how the new one compares to that. But it's so quotable. There's so many things in there. It's like Dune for me. I can watch that film and get something new from it, the same way I can read Frank Herbert's Dune every time and get something new from that film. So what was your original... when did you first see it? Did it instantly become your favourite film?
Interestingly enough, my reaction to it was exactly the same as yours. So it came out in 1982, back when I was 9, and so I wouldn't have seen it at the cinema. So it would have been sort of when it came out on VHS a few years later. And the first time that I saw it, almost certainly I think I probably enjoyed it, but I didn't like take to it, probably because I was a little bit too young. Yeah. And it isn't this sort of massive popcorny action film. But then I remember a few years later that I actually ended up with my own copy of it. And that was the point where it kind of burned into my brain. There was a period when I was a teenager, I'm guessing, and it is a guess, kind of round about 17, 18, 19, where I was just watching it literally every day. And there's just something about it, and it's not the sort of film that I normally watch, but it's to me it's almost like the Casablanca of sci-fi movies, in the sense that Casablanca is this classic film that never was really destined to be a classic, but it just so happened that everything came together at this one moment in time, and it was like lightning in a bottle, and it just made something that was perfect. And that's what I feel about Blade Runner. So I have the production design, it just looks beautiful. Like the intrigue of the plot, I think is fascinating, and the fact that 35 years later people are still interested in it, and having debates about what it means goes to show you what a great film it is. And the audio also makes it as well. So I actually have the entire movie as an MP3 file, and you can listen to it as just like an incredibly atmospheric sort of double album. The movie stands by itself as a piece of audio without any of the visuals whatsoever, and it's just the perfect combination of all these things that I just absolutely love it. It's just a stunning film.
And I've watched a lot of stuff since. There's various directors' versions that they've done and different cuts of the films. And I remember a few years ago they brought this special tin, remember, with all these different bits in and artwork and interviews with the cast, and we've had disagreements for years as well that surrounded this film between the director and some of the actors on what certain parts of the film mean. And that was always a problem with the new one for me. I was worried that it would undermine the original and ruin it for me. It's not like a thing where you say, it won't have any impact. It's like, well, it will, because you're carrying characters through. So you can't just pretend it doesn't exist, or it's not going to change how you feel about the original. So speaking about the original still, what was your opinion on the ending then?
So this is something, if you're not familiar with this, there's about 6 or 7 different cuts of the film. Yeah. So there's a couple of different versions of the theatrical cut that has a couple of things in it. So it's interesting that normally when you think of a director's cut, you think of the movie getting longer, whereas actually, interestingly, the director's cut of this movie is shorter. So there are 2 things in the original theatrical release that doesn't make it into any of the subsequent cuts. One is a voiceover by Harrison Ford that he really, really didn't want to do, and he just sort of basically phoned in. He tried to do as bad a job as possible so that they didn't include it in the movie. And then they still included it in the movie. Yeah. Unfortunately, his character is so dour anyway. The fact that he's just doing it in a really downbeat voice sort of fits. So, if it had sounded like some sort of crazy clown, they wouldn't have been able to include it, but it's the sort of fit. And then there's a happy ending with extra dialogue also tacked onto the end. as well. And those two things are taken out of the subsequent cuts. And then the way that the director's cut and the final cut and all of these other versions end is with him and Rachel, who we know is a replicant, leaving the apartment to escape from Gaff, played by Edward James Olmos, and he trips over a piece of origami, an origami unicorn, and from that, decades of arguments have arisen.
Yes,
because there's the one camp that says Deckard is a human. And he falls in love with Rachel, and they sort of ride off into the sunset together. But there's people, including Ridley Scott, but not including Harrison Ford, who says the significance of the unicorn, because we see him having a dream about a unicorn about halfway through the movie, is that means that Gaff knows what Deckard dreams about, and that means we know that Deckard therefore must be a replicant, because that's one of the things that he knows about Rachel. He knows what her dreams are and what her memories are, and so on. I personally think it doesn't really matter. I think the question is more important and more interesting than the answer. And that was kind of one of the concerns about the new movie, that they were just going to sort of, we'll just sort of tie everything with a really neat bow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
No, go on.
So the only thing I was going to say is we've kind of leaped ahead and talked about how we feel about the film and the twist at the end, not the twist at the end, but the meaning of the ending. And it is conceivable that there's people out there that haven't seen it, and actually there's lots of stuff, important stuff in the first film that will bleed into our talking about the second one. So maybe you could just give us a very quick sort of summary about the main plot of the film, but kind of what it's about on the surface.
The original.
Yeah.
So humans have created these artificial beings called replicants that look like us, but they're designed to do very specific jobs. Some of the dirtiest jobs, some of the nastiest jobs that humans don't want to do. So you have miners in areas that are toxic to humans, but we still want the materials. You have essentially pleasure bots. You have, I'm trying to think what some of the other ones do. But they're all there's a certain number of designs, and they're quite limited, but they also have a limited lifespan, so that they don't live forever and don't try and take over, because they're independent, they look like us, and they're incredibly lifelike as well. That's the other thing to get across, that it's very difficult to tell unless you know what you're looking for. They've made them so well, and they're made by Wayland Industries, by this sort of mad genius, really.
Not Wayland. So you're thinking of Wayland Yutani from Aliens.
So what's
Tyrell?
Tyrell Corporation, of course.
Yeah. So you're right. So they're completely 100% indistinguishable from human beings. There's nothing that you can do to sort of tell them apart. But they're so like human beings. Like you say, they're essentially being used as slave labor. But they're so realistic that there's this concern that over time they're going to develop normal human emotions. And the concern of that is once they develop emotions, they're going to start to rebel and take over, because they're more intelligent and stronger. They're just better than us in every way, pretty much. So they're banned from being on Earth. So they're put to work, on the outer rim, on the off-world colonies, but they're not allowed to come to Earth. But some of them do come to Earth. They break out and escape, and they come down to Earth. Because of that, we have these Blade Runner squads that are there to retire the replicants. And the way that they find out whether somebody's a replicant is they subject them to something called the Voight-Kampff test, which is this test where they ask them questions that are designed to elicit an emotional response. And their inability to process emotions will kind of give them away. And that's what Deckard's role is. So he's a Blade Runner, brought out of retirement, and he's there to basically find out who the replicants are, so that he can kill them. So it's all to do with, there's lots of connections there to what it means to be human, and what it means to have, do these people deserve the rights of a human? And that's the reason they were given this sort of shortened lifespan, just a 4-year lifespan, to prevent them from developing these emotions. Excuse me. So,
and the group that's come to Earth, they want to live. That's why they've actually come back. They're trying to find a way around the loophole. They know that they're on borrowed time, and their leader, Roy, is essentially trying to get in contact with their creator to say there must be a way to change this. We're independent. We have, a soul. He believes that they deserve better, and he's willing to do anything really to reach his goal, whilst they're also still being hunted down by Descartes and killed one by one. And it's got some very big actors in now that we'd say they're huge, but at the time they really weren't that well known, I would say.
Yeah, so starring Harrison Ford, of course, but Roy Batty, played by the brilliant Rutger Hauer, in an amazing role. Daryl Hannah,
yes, at that point,
as Pris, one of the replicants.
You'd probably only seen him in things like Splash and the odd film. At that time, it was. Remember, it was very early days. Yeah,
and of course, I'm sure a favourite of both of ours, Edward James Olmos.
Yes, as Gaff.
Yep.
Yes, yeah. I can't remember the name of the actor with the moustache. I've forgotten his name, bless him. But he's since passed away, actually, unfortunately, hasn't he?
Yeah, I can't say Leon is the name of the character.
Yeah, one of the other. I'll find his name in a second. But sadly, he passed away a few years ago. And, of course, Sean Young as Rachel. Brian James, that's his name.
That's right, yeah.
He's a very recognisable actor. He's played a lot of villains, and he's things like Tango and Cash, Fifth Element. He's always playing kind of rough and tumble guys with his famous moustache for a long time. But he passed away in 1999, actually.
Wow, a long time ago now.
Yeah.
So given that we both have a lot of affection for the first movie, what did you feel when the sequel was announced?
Very scared, terrified that they said that, one, they're doing a sequel, which is always a worry. 2, Harrison Ford was going to be in it, and not because I don't like him. I think he's a very good actor. That would cause problems with the things that we've talked about. It would either clarify the discussion around the film one way or the other, thus disrupting some of the mystery and possibly changing how I viewed the original, because the director of the new film, who is called Denis Villeneuve, it's not Dennis, it's pronounced Denis, apparently, I've been told, by someone who knows him. So that was always a worry. It's like, whilst they might try and be kind and make the new film in the mould of the old and how it looks and feels, that was always a concern for me. And I thought, it's gonna... I wish they hadn't done it. Most of the time, I think I don't want them to do sequels to good films. What about you?
I was kind of the same. So initially I thought this is an absolutely terrible idea. It's impossible to make a sequel of. And then when I found out who the director was, and then we were getting all this imagery coming out, I was kind of beginning to feel a lot more positive about it. And then I went in thinking, well, if Blade Runner is my favourite film of all time, then there's no way that it can possibly compare to that. But I'm still going in, hoping for a broadly positive experience of it.
Yeah.
So coming out of it, what did you think?
I was amazed, to be honest. There's very little I can say about the film that's bad. There's one massive thing, but we'll come on to that. But overall, I had a very positive and visceral response to the film, more than I was anticipating. We'll come on to some of this stuff, but it's amazing. And now I'm glad that they've done it.
Absolutely. I think it's a masterpiece. Like, it's it's without a doubt, I think, the best sequel that I've ever seen to a movie. Not because it's a really good movie in its own right, which I think it is, but it just managed to take everything that was great in the original and expand on it and make it better. Like it's a sequel that actually makes the original a better film by existing.
Yeah.
I just think they just explored the themes and the way they, just expanded on all of these ideas. It's the perfect complement to the original film. It genuinely amazed me what they achieved by doing it. I can't imagine any way that it could have been made better.
Oh, I can think of one way, but if they said they were remaking it, I would have been concerned, very, very concerned, more so than I originally was. But seeing this, the way that it was done in so much of the mold of the old film without ruining the old film and yet building on it, as you say, I can't think of another film that's done that, another franchise, as it were. I mean, they want to make everything a franchise now. They just have to. That's part of the whole kind of thing of milking anything to death. But for once, all the stars aligned, and they actually got the right people to do it. Because sometimes they really don't. I mean, you look at some of the other stuff the director's done, and I'll be the first to admit it. I've watched some of his other films, and I thought they were okay. I mean, have you seen Prisoners?
I haven't, no.
That he's directed. It's all right. It's totally different. Not Sicario. Yeah, it's not bad. Arrival he directed it from 2016. You've seen that, haven't you?
I've seen Arrival.
That is incredible. That is a fantastic science fiction film. Absolutely wonderful. So that should have given me perhaps a little bit of hope. But, that's one out of a, 10, 15 number of films that he's directed. So I didn't have high hopes, but completely blew me away.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I like about it is it's actually a very slow-paced film. Like, it feels very classic in that sense, and it almost feels like I've read a book, and I tried it for a while, then kind of gave up. A book on like mindfulness meditation. That's kind of being about in the moment and like focused on your surroundings. And that's the thing, you see so many movies where it's just like all like disco lights and explosions and really pounding rock music and stuff like that. And actually the fact that this was actually just genuinely an incredibly slow movie and let you sort of focus on how stunning all of these scenes were and the music and just the spectacle of the whole thing. It just was a beautiful looking film. Visually,
the colours, they use colours so well in this, whether it's scenes in the desert where everything is bled orange and yellow and black and grey, and then there's other scenes in the snow, and it's just, I mean, they've got that mood thing again. The mood of the film is perfect. You've got the heavy scenes in the snow with the rain and everything's black and grey, and yet you've got the super bright neon burning through, and the lights on all of the cars are really shocking and bright. And normally when I talk about the film, I don't talk about these aspects, but because they're such a part of the tapestry of the original and this, like the smog as well, that it stands out so well. I mean, visually, the set design were incredible, the costumes, the makeup, the special effects in terms of the CGI with his girlfriend. We should say that Ryan Gosling's character has a live-in girlfriend. It's a bit complicated, but that was incredible. I've never seen anything like that before in a film. And I'm not even sure I want to see the making of, because I think it would spoil the impact of seeing how they did those things, Just unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just amazing. Well, so just again, we're assuming that everybody's seen it, but just to sort of recap the plot a little bit. So Kay is a Blade Runner, like Harrison Ford is in the first movie, but we know absolutely explicitly right from the beginning, right from the very opening scene, that he is a replicant. So he's a replicant that's being sent out to kill other replicants.
Skinwalker, as they call him.
Yeah, everybody hates him because he's a replicant.
Yeah.
And he finds, right at the very beginning, he finds this very bizarre evidence where it looks like a replicant has managed to have a child, which is very weird. And he's sort of sent out to try and get to the root of this matter. And there are people out there trying to stop him from getting to the root of it. There are people out there with nefarious motives to find out the root of that before him. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of about his journey. And like you say, he has this robot girlfriend, or this AI girlfriend, who's ephemeral, who kind of follows him around for a lot of the movie. And it's just about the journey that he goes on. And there's lots of really nice stuff in there about, we were initially led to believe, there's this big twist where we initially led to believe that he is the offspring that he's trying to find, and so he believes that he's special in some way, and then it turns out that he isn't, but he works out who is.
Yes.
And it's just a beautifully done movie where, again, exactly like the first film, where everything sort of comes together and kind of makes something perfect. The acting, the plot, the visuals of it, the music and the soundtrack is absolutely incredible. And it's just a stunning film.
I mean, there's lots of great callbacks. There's lots of almost panel for panel, scene for scene in some things. Mm-hmm. There's returning characters and actors. So Edward James Olmos is in it again as Gaff, in addition to obviously Harrison Ford from the original. Mm-hmm. And there's another one that I won't spoil that's a sort of callback. But here's the other one that I was really confused until I went away and looked at the IMDb page, and I thought it can't be. So the character of Love, who's this prostitute that he meets. Now the actress is called Sylvia Hoeks, I think, or Hooks. Mm-hmm. I thought that was Daryl Hannah.
Right. Okay.
For the first couple of minutes, I wasn't watching the film. I was watching this actress going, No, it's a CGI thing with the dots on the face and blah, blah. I'm going, no, it can't be. It is. No, but it's not. And but there's something about her. And the fact that, of course, Daryl Hannah's character in the original as Pris was a kind of, a prostitute character, wasn't she? Her replicant was a pleasure thing. So that freaked me out a lot to begin with as well, which added in some ways to the enjoyment of my film, because it was completely tripping me up, thinking, well, it's the same girl. No, it can't be. It can't be, but it is. And then the way she merges with the other character and stuff. So there's a lot of this kind of blending of the two films in a way that worked that I'd never expected at all.
Yeah. I mean, like I know I've said this before, but it's a movie that makes the original better, which is just amazing. I've only managed to see it once. Like normally when we talk about a film, it's not necessarily when it's out in cinema at the moment, and we might have seen it a few times. But this is a current film, and I've only got to see it once. But I just know as soon as I get my hands on a copy, I'm just going to be watching it over and over again, and I'm sure spotting so many things that I didn't see the first time round.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm interested to know what you didn't like about it.
2 words for you. Ready? Okay. Jared Leto.
Okay, all right. So not a big part of the film.
Thankfully not, no.
Yeah.
No. And he won an Oscar for a previous role. I've not seen it. It was the Diamond something Club, whatever it was. I can't remember what it was. I'll think of it. I'll think of the film in a minute. Dallas Buyers Club. I think he won an Oscar for that, I believe. I saw him in Suicide Squad, thought he was awful. And he's a method actor, but he's not Daniel Day-Lewis, and yet he seems to think that he is. So he is a method actor to the point where he wore contact lenses that made him blind, and his assistant on set would then guide him around, so that when he was playing the blind character of Neander Wallace, he was effectively blind. I didn't buy for a second that he was blind, and I didn't like the character, and I didn't believe him in the role. So,
well, the interesting thing is about putting the contact lenses in to deliberately make himself blind is that through most of his scenes, he has those sort of drones that wander around him that stops him from being blind. So he can't see, but he's also not blind.
Yeah. But then the actor actually can't see because he's put these contact lenses in. Which surely is defeating the purpose of being able to see in the character. I just, he wasn't very good. He wasn't very convincing. And thankfully he wasn't in it very much. But you're not supposed to like the character anyway. But that's what, he did that well, if that was part of the thing. Yeah, you could have got anybody in, to be honest, to play that part. And I don't think he added anything to it by bringing him in. But thankfully, having Robin Wright as Lieutenant Joshi, who I didn't know that they named her that because he just calls her Madam. Ryan Gosling's character, Kay, just calls her Madam the entire time. I think somebody else refers to her as Lieutenant. And then we find out later on. I thought Dave Bautista was brilliant.
What a fantastic actor! He's kind of the most surprising to me because he's like, you will know this better than I do, but he's some sort of professional wrestler or bodybuilder, isn't he?
He used to be in the WWE as a wrestler, and yet in this, I've never seen him look so haggard.
But he's felt like he was great in Guardians of the Galaxy, but I got the impression that in Guardians of the Galaxy it was kind of a role that was made for him.
Yeah.
Whereas this is serious acting that he's doing in this. And he's amazing in it. I mean, he steals the scene that he's in.
He does. I mean, he's been in things like Bond, but there again, they create the character of the certain kind of villain. He's the Odd Job, he's the Jaws, his character's called Mr. Jinx or something like that. And then again, he's just big and, strong and throws Bond around. But in this, he was incredible. He was so good. And having Harrison Ford back was brilliant as well. He was so haggard in the role of Deckard after so many years and world weary. It just everything, and obviously said Edward James Olmos as Gaff again. It just dovetailed so well because you got these returning actors.
The only disappointment for me, so I didn't dislike Jared Leto. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
I thought he was a very small part of the film. And he didn't even steal the scenes that he was in.
Yeah.
But the biggest disappointment for me, and there's absolutely no way that they could have possibly carried it off, so I know that it's impossible. But how amazing would it have been if you'd have gone to see it not knowing that Harrison Ford was in the movie?
No,
I just think...
How would you have done it?
Because he doesn't appear until more than 2 hours in, right? It's a nearly 3 hour long film, and he's not in it for the vast majority of the film.
No.
So it would have just been such a great surprise and a twist, because it kind of like the way that he appears is kind of directed like it should be a surprise. All of a sudden, here's Deckard that we're seeing for the first time in like a really long time. But it's not a surprise because you know that he's in the film and you've seen loads of footage of him being in the film. And I just wish there was some way that they could have preserved that twist. I know that it's impossible that they could have preserved that twist because we just can't do that nowadays. But I would have just loved to have been like taken aback that he was in the film.
Yeah, for that initial kind of gut punch. Oh, I got the names wrong of the actresses, by the way. Love, of course, is the replicant that's named.
Yeah,
is the muscle. That's by the actress Sylvia Hoeks. The one I'm talking about is the female replicant who's the prostitute by an actress called Sally Harmson. Before we get people emailing, yes,
and there's lots of and with that character, there's lots of really interesting stuff that never gets explored at all, which is sort of this underground movement of replicants. This sort of robots robot rebellion that's hinted at, but is never explored and only mentioned peripherally, which in many other movies would be frustrating, but just kind of fleshes out the world a little bit, but isn't actually sort of overly relevant to the plot.
Yeah. And you get to see this kind of older replicant that's only got one eye, and you blatantly, it's just there's been a history there. Something has happened. That's why she's always wearing sunglasses, because you don't want to see that she's only got one eye, and just layers and layers of things that, as you say, the next time you watch it, you're going to pick up. And the music was so well done, and at some points it was really, really loud and intrusive, but it was meant to have like a visceral effect on the viewer, and other times it was so gentle and peaceful and background like you had in the original, and it just added to the tone of the film. And it really surprised me at how good it was. And yes, it was a longer film, but I didn't care. I know some people say the most common criticism I hear of any film in the last 15 years is, could have been 20 or 30 minutes shorter. Could have been. It's like, for a film like this, it's not a 60, 70, 82-minute film with action and shooting and running around. If you want that, don't watch this film. It's not that, and it's never meant to be that. It's supposed to be something that you soak in gently. You don't just down it like a shot of vodka.
Yeah, it's deliberately slow, and I think it's all the better for it. And just stunning. And you mentioned the music, so the music was composed by Hans Zimmer.
Yes,
who just has an amazing legacy of doing music in films. But the thing that I loved, it was something that was very original, but also at the same time there was really, like, one of the famous things about the original film is the soundtrack by Vangelis.
Yes.
And there was lots of little sort of subtle callbacks to the original soundtrack, but it was also its own thing at the same time. But the music was so there was some bits in the movie where the bass was so strong,
yes,
that it made my seat shake. And it was like, it's not like you're hearing it, but you can also kind of feel it in your chest as well.
Yes.
And it was
seen it as IMAX.
Oh boy, it made my eardrums explode.
Yeah. That'd be incredible if it did that. Well, not exploding, but I meant just seeing it in IMAX would be incredible. Wow. But yeah, what a film. What a remarkable film.
Just incredible. So what do you reckon? So just think about drawing things to a close. What do you reckon the chances are for a sequel, and what might we see in a sequel?
What, a third one?
Well,
another Blade Runner film after this one.
Yeah. Is it a possibility?
If this film does well at the box office, at the moment it's doing okay. It hasn't set the box office on fire that they hoped. Either they'd have to rush a film through in the next 5 years, or we might get another sequel in about 15 years' time.
Yeah.
Where it goes, I think it would be focused more on the rogue replicants and their uprising, and what comes next in the kind of major reveal of this film, and a new society, perhaps. What about you?
I think so. Yeah, it hasn't done great at the box office, but then again, who would expect it to do great at the box office? It's not something that it's something that I would expect is going to have a really long tail. Like, it's going to be big on Blu-ray and stuff like that, because it isn't paced like a modern day film. It's really slow. I would guess that it's probably relatively low budget.
No, it costs 150 million.
Okay, that's probably low. That's like indie by the today's standards.
Well, yeah, relatively modest. However, at the moment it's already made 223. So
yeah,
it's made its money back.
And it's going to be a slow burn as well, right? I think this, like the first film wasn't a commercial success.
No, not at all.
And then it had this extra life, and it became this this huge thing, on VHS and stuff like that. So I think that I think they're going to make plenty of money off of this, but it's not going to have made all of its money back in like the opening weekend or something like that.
No.
So I think there's a possibility for a sequel, but we'll have to wait and see. But like you say, I think we might be waiting a few years for it. But there's interesting things to discover, So there's the Replicant Rebellion, which would be something really interesting to explore. There's also this idea that now we have this. We now have this, offspring of a replicant. So the daughter character that gets revealed, and how brilliant that we saw it earlier on, and then it all of a sudden became clear that who she was and why she was crying when Kay shared his memories with her.
Yeah.
And she said that she'd been forced to live in this sort of warehouse and had this job as a maker of memories. But it was because they were trying to keep her, isolated from the world so she wouldn't be hunted down. So many just lovely, lovely little ideas in there. But now now she can be released to the world, and you can imagine them doing a sequel where she almost kind of becomes the Messiah. Like there's this rebellion looking for a Messiah, and they're going to look to her to be that. So I can see directions that they could take a sequel in that would be really, really fascinating and really interesting and built on what we've already seen. So we just I don't know, if we never get a sequel, I think I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
But if we do, they did it in such a way that it's not left the door wide open for a sequel.
No.
But there's enough interesting things that they put in there where I think they could easily do one.
Yeah, like you, I'd be happy either way. But this is definitely a film I need to go back and watch again. I'm probably not going to get to the level of you of watching it every day for several weeks, but this is something that I will revisit a few times for sure, just to kind of soak it up again. And it's, as you say, it's nearly 3 hours, so it's not something you can do all the time.
I just know I'm going to be watching this constantly when I get it on Blu-ray. That's going to be it. I'm going to wear it out.
Yeah, you're the first person ever to have worn out a Blu-ray disc from watching it so many times. Yeah, it'll happen. So, have you seen the original? Have you seen the new film? What did you think? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Let us know. You can email us, grouchygeeks@gmail.com. Or you can come onto the Facebook group and talk about the film there. But if you do, please be careful of spoilers for those who haven't seen it. So you're probably better off emailing us. And don't forget to support this podcast and all of the others on the Geek Syndicate network by going to patreon.com/Geek Syndicate. So that's it for this month, for November. But we'll think up something seasonal for our December Christmas episode.
Yeah, our Christmas special, and we know how much people look forward to our Christmas specials.
We do. Anyway, at least we do.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Good night.
Good night.